Hello and welcome to the Revive Nutrition podcast with head coach of Revive Nutrition, JJ Flood. So today's episode is called Choose Your Pain, and it's all about avoidant coping mechanisms. This conversation was born out of a check-in that I had with a Revive member. She is endeavoring to go into an IVF journey, obviously to conceive with her partner. And over the last maybe 6-7 months, we have been hitting hurdles and challenges with regards to getting her to really jump in 2 feet first into her nutrition, into her movement, into her training and things like that. So the reason why I wanted to record this podcast was because, to be totally honest, there's a lot of the things that she was doing that I would resonate with, a lot of things that I would see a lot of myself in, and it dawned on me that if I experience these things, if I have previously experienced these things, she is also going through it at the minute, then there's bound to be other people out there as well. So I wanted to create a podcast as a little bit of a resource on it. So I'll set the scene for you. You are worried about your health and fitness. You're worried about your body composition. You're worried about your strength. You're worried about the aesthetics. You're worried about how your clothes are fitting you. But you know deep down that changing those things is going to be painful. There's going to be change. There's going to be things that are going to push you. There's going to be things that are going to make you uncomfortable. And that shit is scary. That is painful in itself. And what you end up doing is you end up employing avoidant coping mechanisms. The way I said it to her, and the way I'm sure 100 people have maybe said things to you in the past, is you bury your head in the sand. You ignore it. You kind of hope that it just goes away, which is fine because you're burying your head in the sand with things like work or things like household errands or keeping yourself busy with kids and family and always finding something to tinker with, which is fantastic because that blocks out all of the noise about your health and your fitness and your body composition. But when that noise dies down and it's maybe just you alone at night in bed with your own thoughts, then the noise comes back about your body comp. The noise comes back about your strength, your fitness, your overall long-term health. So these avoidant coping mechanisms, they're great in the short term to blot out that noise, but in the long term, they never really work. And that's what I wanted to talk about today. I wanted to talk about the idea of using avoidant tactics to shut out that noise, but then explore why we do it, and then most importantly, look at how you can get through it as well. Because if you're anything like her and you're anything like me, then the chances are that you are either currently employing avoidant tactics or you've used them in the past and you would like to not do that in the future. So I'm going to go through a couple of different things as to why we do it, how it comes up, misconceptions around it as well, and then we will work through it from there. So the first thing that I want to start out with is a misconception. The idea around avoidant tactics or avoidant mechanisms is that it's just laziness. And that is something, maybe it's to do with today's fitness industry, maybe it's to do with culture, or maybe it's to do with society. I'm not quite sure. But the idea basically is that if you're avoiding doing something that you know you should do, well, then you must be lazy. And that's just not the case at all. In fact, when it comes to avoidance, quite a lot of the time, it's a psychological response to fear. If you are employing avoidant techniques and strategies, quite a lot of the time it's actually your inner child. It's the little boy or the little girl. They're afraid of something. They see a big monster. They see the potential pain of having to work hard, or they see the pain of having to get up and do your steps, or they see the annoyance of having to go to the gym, or maybe the gym itself is the big monster. Whatever it might be, avoidant tactics quite often are a psychological response of your inner child that's afraid of something and they want to stay well clear of it. So that's the first thing I want you to try and understand. I don't want you to get bogged down in being guilted by social media or being guilted by online fitness gurus or being guilted by someone in accounts asking you why you were starting to do your steps at the start of the year and all of a sudden you're not doing them anymore. I want you to understand that avoidance is not laziness. It is often your inner child that is afraid of something. That's the first thing I want to look at. So, why do we do that then? Why do we avoid things? Why is our inner child afraid of things? Well, quite a lot of the time, it is because we have not been shown how to confront things. We have not been shown how to beat things. We have not been shown how to be resilient to knockbacks. And the thing is, if you haven't been shown those things, if they haven't been coached into you, if they haven't been shown to you in detail whilst you were young or maybe through your teenage years and things like that, then it only makes sense that you're going to find those things difficult now. Now, the next thing that I wanted to touch on as well, and it kind of looks at that idea of social media and definitely like online fitness influencers and things like that. There's this raft of kind of motivational PTs and motivational online coaches and things like that, where they're very much like suck it up, buttercup, get the hard shit done, embrace the suck, and all this stuff, and that whole kind of David Goggins-esque kind of energy. And don't get me wrong, I'm not putting that down. I'm not saying like unequivocally that that is negative. I'm not saying it's toxic. I'm not saying that it's not useful. It obviously has some use in some scenarios, and there will be times that you will need to lean on that whole right, suck it up, gotta get on with things. But the problem with coaches and gurus and things like that and influencers who are only using that as blanket advice, they basically say to everyone, you gotta suck it up, buttercup. What they're doing is that they are literally screaming at that inner child that I just talked about. They are seeing avoidant tactics as laziness. They're seeing it as you just not caring, and that's not the truth. A solid approach and a good coaching approach would be to acknowledge that yes, avoidant tactics aren't great long term. They obviously don't move you forward long term because they don't do the thing that you need to do. But you need to understand why you're doing it. And if I was a coach and I was just screaming at you to suck it up, well, all that's going to do is put you into a very, very fearful, frightening arena without any assistance, without any explanation. And in reality, that's when people burn out. And then you'll get the online coach saying, oh, you're quitting. Oh, you just didn't want it enough. Oh, you just weren't disciplined enough. Oh, you just weren't motivated enough. And that's not the case. The case is that your inner child was screaming, they were frightened, and they didn't have any assistance at all. The third thing about avoiding tactics that I wanted to look at was the perfectionist. Here's the truth. If you don't start something, you can't fail it. And that is something that definitely rings true for me. I know that I have traits previously, traits that I'm trying to work on at the minute, that essentially there's this perfectionist in me. And however that came about, I'm not sure just yet. I'm sure that you would need to figure that out in yourself too, if that resonates with you as to why the perfectionist is in you. But for me, the concept of, well, if I don't try, I can't fail. That is something that rings true, and that is another key factor for a lot of people using avoidant coping mechanisms. They just bury their head in the sands. They keep themselves busy with life. Oh, I'll get back to the gym next month. I'll be quieter next month, or I'll start the gym when the kids go back to school, or I'll start eating healthy after Christmas, or I'll do this, or I'll do that. And the truth is, these are all avoidant coping mechanisms. And one of the big factors as to why people end up with avoidant coping mechanisms is that idea of perfectionism. No one likes failing. Let's just put that out there. No one revels in the idea of not getting something right. It just so happens to be that some of us, unfortunately, are massively, massively adverse to it, and that's how people end up with avoidant coping mechanisms. So I wanted to finish up with a couple of points on how we can overcome avoidant coping mechanisms, and then a few little kind of final thoughts on it as well. So for me, when it comes to avoidant coping mechanisms, there are three main things that you want to be looking at, okay? The first one, which is the title of this episode, is choose your pain. Now, The truth is, are you in emotional, maybe sometimes physical pain right now in your current situation? Are you unhappy about how you look? Are you unhappy about your health? Are you unhappy about your strength and your fitness? Are you unhappy about your body composition? The chances are the answer is yes, because you wouldn't be using avoidant coping mechanisms to avoid the work unless you were unhappy with that current situation. But for you, what you need to do is weigh those two things up. You need to choose your pain. You need to choose the pain of remaining exactly where you are right now, or you need to choose the pain of moving forward. You need to choose the pain of change. You need to choose the pain of doing the shit that needs done. The second thing that I would want you to focus on if you are trying to beat avoidant coping mechanisms would be focusing on the process, not the outcome. One of the big things that causes people to be daunted by tasks such as changing their body composition is that they will look and say, I'm going to be happy when I am X amount of weight. That so happens to be 20 kilograms away. That is a big number. 20 kilograms of body change is absolutely astronomical. That could be as much as maybe 30-40% of someone's overall body weight. So looking at that bigger picture makes it out to be a mountain. That will scare you and that will prompt you to do avoidant things. So what you need to do is look at processes rather than outcomes. You know that there's steps that you take daily, weekly, monthly that will lead to weight loss, for example. You know that if you do them enough for long enough, that will result in 20 kilos of weight loss. That's great. So instead of looking at this, look at this. Look at the process. Look at, I need to do my steps daily. I need to go to the gym 2 to 3 times a week. I need to make sure that I'm eating a high protein diet. I need to make sure that I'm sleeping well, I'm drinking enough water, and that I'm looking after my calories and my nutrients. You need to focus on processes rather than focusing on the outcome of what those processes will give you. The last one is working with a coach. And I know what you're going to say. Oh, of course he would say that. He's a coach. He makes money out of this. Yes, there's an element of that. Of course there is. But here's the truth. One of the big reasons why you employ avoidant tactics is because you're doing it in silence. You're not talking to people about things. You're just seeing a situation, i.e. going to the gym, and you are not talking to other people about it. You're not explaining to other people about it. You're not getting different perspectives. And this is where a coach will pay you back tenfold. Not only will the coach obviously give you accountability, you have a soundboard there, you have someone who you know is going to check in with you, you have someone who you know is going to say, well, how did this week go? How did that go? How did this go? But the other bigger point for me with a coach is an outside perspective. We all build things up in our own heads. We all tell ourselves that it's this absolute mountain and this absolute massive things to be doing. And I get that. I do that as well. That's why I work with other people too. It's an outside perspective. So with a coach, you're not just going to get the accountability. You're not just going to get your goals and your targets. You're going to get an outside perspective as well. So I just wanted to finish off with a couple of different thoughts on avoidant tactics and why they're holding you back. The first thing I want to say is this. Avoidant tactics are normal, so I don't want you to feel guilty. They're absolutely normal. They're part of human nature for all of those psychological reasons that I just talked about. But they're not helpful. And that's the first thing that I want you to understand. You don't need to feel guilty about this. You're totally normal. You're human. It's totally fine. But they're not helping you. And they may make you feel comfortable right now, but in the long term, they're going to make you feel uncomfortable. And the final thought that I want to talk about is the idea of this. Doing the thing is really scary, but the only thing that makes doing the thing less scary is doing the thing. And I know that sounds shit, but it's the absolute truth. So I have been JJ Flood, head coach of Revive Nutrition. Hopefully you found a few little nuggets in this. If you want to, you can reach out to me on Instagram or Facebook. And thank you very much for listening to this episode.